hundreds of sex crimes cases mishandled. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has taken heat for botching those investigations.
You hear a number like hundreds, and it's hard to comprehend the impact. That is until you see the face and hear the story of a victim seemingly tossed aside.
Here's Morgan Lowe with tonight's special investigation.
We've all lost files before, but how do sheriff's detectives lose track of more than 400 cases? Tonight, for the first time, we have some answers. Not from the sheriff, but from an internal memo and a vulnerable victim sharing her story for the first time.
State of Arizona versus Patrick J. Morrison. This is time set for sentencing.
Patrick Morrison appeared before the judge in stripes and shackles.
Yes, I'd like to apologize to the victim and tell him I'm sorry for what I did to her.
Pleading guilty to raping his own niece. She and her family watched, overwhelmed with anger and grief.
It is ordered sentencing you to the Department of Corrections for a period of 24 years.
On this day, justice appeared swift, but in this case and hundreds of others like it investigated by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, swift is not an accurate description. Do you understand why it took so long?
No.
Is there any excuse that the Sheriff's Office could give you that would make you understand why?
No.
They knew who the suspect was. They knew where he lived. He never left the jurisdiction in all 5 years that the case went neglected. They did nothing.
Sabrina Morrison had the odds stacked against her from the day she was born.
She spent, I would say, the first 3 years of her life pretty much in the hospital.
Her mother, Vicky, says Sabrina was mentally disabled and born with defects in her heart, lungs, and stomach. And yet she pulled through.
She's always been a fighter, always.
But none of those battles prepared her for what happened the night of March 7th, 2007, the night her uncle, Patrick Morrison, snuck into her bedroom and raped her. She was just 13 years old.
He threatened me, said not to tell anybody, or he would hurt me.
The next day at school, Sabrina did what most victims of sexual assault do not. She told a teacher what happened. The teacher called the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office.
Sabrina had already had mental problems, and she was known to make up stories and act out some, but to this extent, it was like, wow, is this real or not?
After a rape exam and an interview with detectives,
They said that I wasn't molested.
they told you that they didn't believe you.
They said nothing came back.
What was the message you walked away with?
I was told straight to my face there was no evidence of any trauma, no sexual assault. So we thought she was lying the whole time.
What neither Vicky nor Sabrina knew was that the detective did send the rape kit to the state crime lab. Key evidence that, as it turns out, contained semen, proof of the rape. The state lab sent this letter to the MCSO Special Victims Unit on May 16th, 2 months later, confirming semen was detected and requesting a blood sample from the suspect for DNA testing. But instead of making an arrest, an MCSO detective put that letter into a file and closed the case. It was 4 years before they requested that blood sample, 5 years before they arrested Patrick Morrison.
An 8th grader could have solved this case.
Charles Serrano is Sabrina's attorney.
They sat on the evidence, closed the case, never obtained the sample necessary to have the DNA testing done.
As a result, Sabrina's nightmare got even worse. Morrison repeatedly raped her. She became pregnant and, because of physical complications, had an abortion. Her parents finally had to send her away to a group home.
If I'd have known from day one that there was evidence, no one would have been around my daughter.
This was just one of hundreds of sex crimes the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office failed to properly investigate. Between the years 2005 and 2008, MCSO officials admit they dropped the ball on more than 400 sex crimes, many of them involving children. They began an internal affairs investigation in 2008, but 4 years later still refused to release the results. We asked the sheriff about it just last week. Have you found out what went wrong with the child sex crimes that fell through the cracks?
I'm not going to answer that. Can I go? I'm not going to keep talking about that.
When will that internal investigation be done, Sheriff?
Anybody have anything else?
An internal memo written by one of the detectives assigned to the Morrison case may shed some light on what went wrong. It blames a high caseload, says the Special Victims Unit had gone from 5 detectives to just 3, and the detectives left were often called off their cases to investigate special assignments, including a credit card fraud case involving the Arizona Diamondbacks and a mortgage fraud case in Sheriff Arpaio's home city of Fountain Hills.
She was told that the highest priority is Fountain Hills.
Higher than child sex crimes.
Higher than child sex crimes. The highest priority.
These kids are the future.
Recently, Sheriff Arpaio's campaign began running an ad that touts his efforts to protect children from deadbeat dads. Have you seen any of the sheriff's commercials where he talks about protecting children?
I've heard about it, and it sickens me. To be honest, it sickens me because nobody was there to protect her.
The Morrisons have filed a $30 million claim against the sheriff's office, alleging that ignoring this case for that long amounted to gross negligence. And Sabrina agreed to talk to us because she wanted other rape victims out there to know that it's okay to speak out.
She is one brave young lady. So, Morgan, the sheriff's office, they've had this investigation going on now for 4 years. Does anyone know why they won't release those results?
No, the sheriff won't talk about it, but his opponent in the coming election accuses Arpaio of deliberately withholding the results until after the election because of what the internal investigation may reveal.